The day Clara Whitmore was supposed to become a wife, she became a pawn instead. Standing at the altar in a borrowed dress, bouquet trembling in her hands, she watched her fiancé's empty seat with growing dread. The whispers started small, confusion, then pity, then something uglier. Her 5-year-old daughter tugged at her hem, asking why Daddy left. Clara had no answer. She had nothing but debt, humiliation, and a church full of witnesses to her destruction. Then a man in a black suit walked through those doors. He wasn't there to save her. He was there to collect. If you want to see how far Clara's story reaches, drop a comment with your city below. Hit that like button and stay until the end. You won't believe where this goes. The flowers were wilting. Clara noticed that first. White roses, expensive ones, drooping in their arrangements like they knew something she didn't. She stood at the front of St. Augustine's chapel, hands clasped around a bouquet that cost more than her monthly rent, and tried to ignore the way her stomach kept twisting itself into knots. Michael was late, 20 minutes late. The organ music had cycled through the same 3 songs twice now. The pianist kept glancing back at her with increasing concern, fingers hovering over the keys like he wasn't sure whether to keep playing or pack up and leave. Clara's mother sat in the second row, spine rigid, face carefully blank in that way that meant she was furious, but too polite to show it in public. Her daughter Emma sat beside her grandmother, swinging her legs and picking at the ribbon on her flower girl basket. She'd already asked 3 times when the wedding was starting. Clara had run out of reassuring answers. "He's probably just stuck in traffic," Clara's maid of honor whispered. Jessica had been trying to sound confident for the past 15 minutes, but her voice was getting thinner each time. "You know how the bridge gets on Saturdays?" Clara nodded, though she didn't believe it. Michael's apartment was 10 minutes away. There was no traffic bad enough to explain this. The guests were getting restless. She could hear it in the shifting fabric, the cleared throats, the murmured conversations that were definitely not about traffic. Someone's phone buzzed. Then another. Clara watched people checking their screens, watched their expressions change. Confusion first, then something that looked almost like vindication. Her phone was in the bridal suite, tucked away in her purse. She turned it off an hour ago, wanting to be present for the ceremony, wanting to focus on the commitment she was about to make. Now she wished she'd kept it. "I'm going to check on him," Jessica said, already moving toward the side door. Just wait here. I'm sure everything's fine." But everything wasn't fine. Clara knew it the way you know a storm's coming before the first drop of rain falls. There was a pressure in the air, a wrongness that made her skin prickle. She'd felt it this morning, getting dressed in a gown that Michael's mother had insisted on buying, too expensive, too formal for someone getting married for the second time. She'd felt it when she'd tried to call Michael before the ceremony, and he hadn't answered. She'd felt it in the way he'd been distant the past 2 weeks, distracted, always on his phone, always 1 foot out the door. She'd ignored it. She'd made excuses. She'd told herself that all grooms got nervous, that wedding planning was stressful, that everything would be fine once they got through the ceremony. Now, standing in front of 150 people with no groom in sight, she couldn't ignore it anymore. The side door opened. Jessica came back alone, her face pale, phone clutched in her hand. "Clara," she said quietly, "we need to talk." That was when the main doors of the chapel burst open. The sound echoed through the vaulted ceiling like a gunshot. Every head turned. Clara's heart lurched, hope and relief flooding through her for one stupid, desperate second. Michael had come back. He'd just been running late. Everything was going to be okay. But the man who walked through those doors wasn't Michael. He was taller, broader, dressed in a black suit that probably cost more than Clara's car. His hair was dark, cropped close, and his face was all sharp angles and cold precision. He moved like someone who'd never been told no in his life, stride confident, purposeful, absolutely certain of his welcome. Behind him, 2 more men followed. They flanked him like bodyguards, though they didn't touch him. They didn't need to. Everything about their posture screamed danger. The stranger's eyes swept the chapel, assessing, cataloging, dismissing everyone until his gaze landed on Clara. He smiled. It wasn't a nice smile. "Clara Whitmore," he said. His voice carried easily through the shocked silence, accent thick, Russian maybe, or something close. "We need to have a conversation." Clara's mouth went dry. "I don't know you." "No," he agreed, walking down the aisle like he owned it, like he owned the whole damn building. But you know Michael Chen, and that makes you very interesting to me. The guests were staring now, openly, whispers rising like a tide. Clara's mother stood up, face flushed with indignation. "Excuse me, who do you think you are, interrupting a wedding?" The man didn't even look at her. He kept his eyes on Clara, closing the distance between them with measured steps. When he reached the altar, he stopped, hands clasped in front of him, expression pleasant and absolutely terrifying. "My name is Leonid Orlov," he said, "and your fiancé stole $4.3 million from me." The chapel went silent. Clara felt the floor tilt under her feet. $4 million. Michael had... No, that wasn't possible. Michael worked in finance. He made decent money, but he couldn't... "You're wrong," she said. Her voice sounded distant, like it belonged to someone else. "Michael wouldn't... Wouldn't?" Leonid's eyebrows rose. "Ms. Whitmore, your fiancé emptied 3 of my investment accounts 2 weeks ago and disappeared. He's currently en route to the Cayman Islands, where I suspect he'll try to establish residency before I can extradite him. He's very clever. Not clever enough, but clever." Clara shook her head, backing up a step. Her heel caught on the edge of the platform. Jessica grabbed her elbow, steadying her, but her friend's hand was shaking too. "I don't believe you," Clara said. "Michael he wouldn't leave." Leonid pulled out his phone, tapped the screen twice, and turned it to face her. It was a photograph. Michael grinning at the camera, sunglasses on, tropical beach in the background. The timestamp read 40 minutes ago. He was holding a drink with a little umbrella in it. He looked happy. Clara stared at the image until her eyes burned. The bouquet slipped from her fingers, roses scattering across the white runner. "You're collateral," Leonid said, pocketing his phone. "He knew I'd come for him, so he made sure I'd find something else instead. You, your assets, your home, your daughter's college fund, I believe. He had his name on that account, didn't he?" Emma. The name hit Clara like a fist to the chest. She thought of her daughter, sitting in the second row, confused and scared, watching her mother's wedding fall apart in real time. She thought of the college fund she'd been building since Emma was born, every spare dollar tucked away, every sacrifice worth it because it meant her daughter would have opportunities Clara never had. Michael's name was on that account. He'd insisted, said it was practical, said it showed they were a team. "How much?" Clara asked. Her voice came out flat, hollow. "How much did he take from me?" Leonid's expression didn't change. "Everything you had. The college fund, your savings, the joint account he convinced you to open last year. Approximately $68,000. Not much, comparatively, but I imagine it was everything to you." It was. It had been her entire safety net, her contingency plan. The cushion that let her sleep at night knowing that if something went wrong, she could handle it. Now it was gone. Michael had taken it all, and he'd done it while planning a wedding, while looking her in the eye and promising forever, while tucking Emma into bed and reading her stories about princes and happy endings. Clara wanted to throw up. "I don't have $4 million, she said. "I can't pay you back. I don't even have enough to cover rent next month now, so if you're here for money—" "I'm not here for money," Leonid interrupted. "Money can be recovered. Assets can be seized. What I need is considerably more complicated." He gestured to the chapel, the flowers, the guests who were watching this disaster unfold with horrified fascination. "You're getting married today," he said. "I simply propose we change the groom." For a second, Clara thought she'd misheard him. Then she saw his expression, calm, serious, absolutely sincere, and realized he meant it. "You want me to marry you?" The words came out too loud, echoing off the walls. Somewhere in the pews, someone gasped. "You're insane!" "I'm practical," Leonid corrected. "Michael left you with nothing but debt and humiliation. If you marry me, the debt disappears. You walk out of here with your dignity intact, your daughter's future secure, and a solution to a problem you didn't create but are currently drowning in." "I don't even know you!" "You didn't know Michael either, apparently." Leonid's tone was almost gentle. "At least I'm being honest about my intentions from the start." Clara laughed. It came out sharp and jagged, bordering on hysterical. "Your intentions? You just told me I'm collateral. You want to marry me to, what, punish Michael? Make a point? I'm a person, not a chess piece you can move around." "I'm aware." Leonid took a step closer. His presence was overwhelming, all contained power and absolute certainty. But right now, you have two choices. Marry me, and I ensure Michael's actions don't destroy your life. Refuse, and I pursue every legal avenue available to recover my losses, starting with the assets he stole from you, which are technically mingled with mine now. That college fund you've been building? I can tie it up in court for years. Your home? I can place a lien on it. I can make the next decade of your life a legal nightmare. That's... Clara's hands were shaking. She clenched them into fists. That's extortion. That's reality. Leonid's eyes didn't waver. I didn't create this situation, Ms. Whitmore. I'm simply offering you the least destructive path through it. By forcing me to marry you. By giving you a choice. He paused. Though I understand if it doesn't feel like one. Clara looked past him, at the faces staring back at her. Her mother, frozen in her seat, one hand pressed to her mouth. Jessica, pale and helpless. The guests, some curious, some pitying, some already pulling out phones to text their friends about the disaster they were witnessing. And Emma. Sweet, trusting Emma, who still believed in fairy tales, who'd been so excited to be a flower girl, who didn't understand why her mother was crying. Clara thought about what would happen if she said no. Lawsuits, court dates, fighting for scraps of her own money while lawyers bled her dry. Years of instability, of scrambling, of watching her daughter suffer because of a man who'd lied with a smile on his face. She thought about what would happen if she said yes. Marriage to a stranger. A dangerous stranger, clearly. Someone with enough power to track down a thief across international borders. Someone who walked into a wedding with bodyguards and made threats sound like reasonable business proposals. Both options were terrifying, but only one of them came with a guarantee. I need conditions, Clara said. Her voice was steadier than she felt. If I agree to this, and I'm not saying I am, but if I do, there are conditions. Leonid's expression shifted, something like approval flickering across his face. I'm listening. Emma doesn't get hurt by this. Whatever arrangement we make, she comes first. Her safety, her stability, her education, all of it protected. In writing, non-negotiable. Agreed. I want my own bedroom, my own space. This is a business arrangement, not... She couldn't finish the sentence. Her face burned. Agreed, Leonid said again. I have no interest in forcing intimacy. You'll have your own quarters, your own privacy. Clara swallowed hard. How long? Excuse me? How long does this marriage last? A year? 5 years? Forever? Leonid considered that. Until Michael's debt is settled and my interests are secure. Approximately 2 years, I'd estimate. Less if he's caught quickly. After that, you're free to divorce with no penalty. 2 years. It felt like a lifetime and no time at all. I want it in writing, Clara said. All of it. The conditions, the timeline, the protections for Emma. I want a contract. I'll have my lawyers draft something before the end of the day. And I want to be able to leave. Clara's voice cracked. If I feel unsafe, I walk. No questions, no consequences. Leonid was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was soft, almost kind. Ms. Whitmore, I understand your fear, but I give you my word, you will not be harmed in my care. Not by me, not by anyone associated with me. Your safety, and your daughter's safety, is guaranteed. The word of a man I met 5 minutes ago. The word of a man who has nothing to gain from hurting you and everything to lose. He extended his hand. Do we have an agreement? Clara stared at his hand like it was a live grenade. Behind her, the officiant cleared his throat. I'm sorry, but I'm not sure I can legally... You can, Leonid said, not looking away from Clara. The license is already filed. The only thing that needs to change is the name. That's not how marriage licenses work. I assure you, the paperwork is in order. Leonid's tone suggested the conversation was over. Clara took a shaky breath. Her whole body felt numb, shock and adrenaline making everything distant and surreal. This couldn't be happening. This was insane. She was standing in a church, in a wedding dress, negotiating a marriage contract with a Russian stranger who just informed her that her fiancé had robbed him and fled the country. But it was happening. And if she didn't make a choice right now, the choice would be made for her. She thought of Emma, of the life she wanted to give her daughter, of the promises she'd made when she was born, to protect her, to provide for her. to make sure she never felt the instability Clara had felt growing up. Michael had broken those promises, but maybe, in the most twisted way possible, this stranger was offering to keep them. Clara reached out and took Leonid's hand. His grip was firm, warm, steady. He didn't squeeze too hard, he just held on. "I'll marry you," Clara said. The words felt like they belonged to someone else. "But if you break your word, if you hurt my daughter, or me, or go back on any of these conditions, I'll find a way to make you regret it." Leonid smiled. This time it almost looked genuine. "I would expect nothing less." He turned to the officiant, who was staring at both of them like they'd lost their minds. "Shall we begin?" "This is highly irregular. Most things worth doing are." Leonid glanced at Clara. "Unless you'd like time to compose yourself?" Clara shook her head. If she stopped, if she thought about this too hard, she'd lose her nerve entirely. Better to just do it, get it over with, rip the Band-Aid off and deal with the bleeding later. "Let's just get this done," she said. The officiant looked between them, then at the crowd of stunned guests, then back at his book. All right, we are gathered here today." "Skip to the vows," Leonid said. "I really don't think—" "The vows, please." The officiant's mouth pressed into a thin line, but he flipped forward several pages. "Do you, Leonid Orlov, take this woman to be your lawfully wedded wife?" "I do." "To have and to hold, in sickness and in health?" "I do." "I haven't finished the question." "I'm aware of what marriage entails," Leonid said dryly. "I accept all terms and conditions." "Please continue." The officiant looked like he wanted to argue, but something in Leonid's expression made him reconsider. He turned to Clara instead. "Do you, Clara Whitmore, take this man to be your lawfully wedded husband?" Clara opened her mouth. Nothing came out. She tried again. The doors at the back of the chapel opened. Everyone turned. Clara's heart lurched, irrational hope flaring up that maybe it was Michael, maybe he'd come back, maybe this was all some horrible misunderstanding. But it wasn't Michael. It was a woman in a police uniform, radio crackling at her hip. She looked at the gathering with professional assessment, then locked eyes with Leonid. "Mr. Orlov," she said, "I need you to come with me." Leonid didn't move. "I'm in the middle of something, officer." "I can see that. Unfortunately, I have questions about Michael Chen's whereabouts, and you're currently my best lead." She took a step inside. "This can be easy or difficult. Your choice." Clara watched Leonid's jaw tighten, the first crack in his composed exterior. He glanced at her, then back at the officer. "Give me 5 minutes," he said. "Mr. Orlov, 5 minutes." His tone left no room for argument. "I'll answer every question you have, but first, I'm finishing this." The officer hesitated. Claire could see her weighing options, calculating risks. Finally, she nodded. 5 minutes. Then you're coming down to the station." "Understood." She stepped back outside, but didn't close the door. A clear message. "I'm watching." Leonid turned back to Clara. His expression was unreadable. "It appears we're on a deadline." The officiant was staring at the door, at the cop standing just outside, at the surreal nightmare his Saturday had become. "I don't think this is legal. Do you, Clara Whitmore, take this man to be your lawfully wedded husband?" Leonid asked, cutting him off. He was looking at her now with an intensity that made her breath catch. "Yes or no? Right now?" Clara thought about Emma, watching from the pews. She thought about the college fund that was gone, the savings that had vanished, the stability she'd spent 5 years building that had crumbled in a single morning. She thought about Michael, sitting on a beach with a drink in his hand, probably laughing about how easy it had been. And she thought about this stranger in front of her, dangerous and calculating and somehow, impossibly, the only solid thing in a world that had just collapsed. "Yes," Clara whispered. Louder. "Yes, I—" Her voice cracked. She forced it steady. "I do. I take you." Whatever that means. Leonid's shoulders relaxed fractionally. He nodded to the officiant. "Finish it." The man looked at his book, then at them, then apparently decided this was above his pay grade. "By the power vested in me by the state, I pronounce you husband and wife. You may—" Leonid kissed her before he could finish. It wasn't gentle. It wasn't romantic. It was brief, efficient, possessive. a stamp of ownership that made Clara's stomach flip and her skin flush hot with anger and confusion, and something she didn't want to name. He pulled back before she could react, turning to the crowd. "Thank you all for coming," he said, voice carrying. "The reception is canceled. Someone will be in touch about gifts." Then he took Clara's hand and started walking. She stumbled, the train of her dress tangling around her ankles. "Wait, I can't just... Emma's still here and my mother. I'll have someone take care of it." Leonid didn't slow down. "Right now we're leaving." "You just got told to go to a police station." "Yes. Which means I have approximately 4 minutes to get you somewhere secure before this becomes complicated." He glanced at her. "Unless you'd prefer to be questioned as Michael's accomplice." Clara's blood went cold. "I didn't know about any of this." "I believe you." "They won't. Not immediately." He pushed through the side door, pulling her into the parking lot. One of his men was already there, holding open the door to a black SUV that looked like it could survive a missile strike. "Get in." "I'm not going anywhere until I talk to my daughter. Your daughter is going to be collected by my people and brought to a secure location. You'll see her in 2 hours. But right now you need to get in the car." Jessica came running out behind them, dress hiked up around her knees. "Clara, what the hell is happening?" Clara looked at her friend, her maid of honor, the person who'd helped her pick out this stupid dress and plan this disaster of a wedding. She wanted to explain. She wanted to apologize. She wanted to scream. "I don't know," she said honestly. "I really don't know." Leonid's hand tightened on hers, not painful, but insistent. 2 hours, he said again. "I promise, but we're out of time." The officer was coming out of the chapel now, radio to her mouth, backup clearly on the way. Clara made a choice. She got in the car. Leonid slid in beside her, and the door slammed shut. The driver pulled out before she'd even fastened her seatbelt, tires squealing on the pavement. Through the tinted window, Clara watched St. Augustine's chapel disappear behind them. She saw Jessica standing in the parking lot, phone to her ear. Saw her mother emerge, face pale and furious. Saw Emma, still holding her flower basket, confused and small and scared. And she realized what she'd just done. She'd married a stranger. She'd left her daughter behind. She'd climbed into a car with a man who admitted to being a criminal, who'd threatened her with legal destruction, who'd kissed her like he owned her. Clara pressed her hand to her mouth, trying to breathe through the panic. "It's going to be all right," Leonid said beside her. He wasn't looking at her. He was already on his phone, speaking rapid Russian to someone on the other end, but his free hand found hers, squeezed once, then let go. It should have felt reassuring. It didn't. Because Clara was sitting in a wedding dress that cost more than her car, married to a man she'd known for less than an hour, watching her entire life disappear in the rearview mirror. And the worst part, the part that made her want to laugh and cry and scream all at once, was that she'd chosen this. She'd actually said yes. The SUV turned a corner, and the chapel vanished from view entirely. The safe house wasn't what Clara expected. She'd been imagining something out of a crime movie. Concrete walls, barred windows, the kind of place where people got interrogated under a single hanging light bulb. Instead, the SU-5 pulled up to a sleek high-rise in the financial district, all glass and steel, the kind of building with a doorman and marble floors and the faint scent of expensive cologne in the lobby. Leonid helped her out of the car, his hand steady on her elbow as she navigated the curb in her wedding dress. The doorman didn't even blink at the sight of them, a woman in full bridal regalia and a man in a suit that probably cost more than the doorman's monthly salary. He just held the door open and nodded. "Mr. Orlov, welcome back." "Thank you, Marcus." Leonid guided Clara past him, through the lobby, toward a private elevator at the back. One of his men swiped a keycard, and the doors slid open. Clara stepped inside, her reflection staring back at her from the mirrored walls. She looked pale, mascara smudged, hair starting to fall out of the elaborate updo Jessica had spent 2 hours perfecting that morning. The dress was wrinkled where Leonid had gripped her hand in the car, fabric bunched and creased. She looked like exactly what she was, a woman who'd just had the worst day of her life. The elevator rose smoothly, no numbers on the display. When it stopped, the doors opened directly into a penthouse apartment. Clara stepped out slowly, taking it in. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the city, sunlight streaming through and making everything glow. The furniture was modern, minimalist, expensive in that way, where nothing had visible price tags because if you had to ask, you couldn't afford it. The kitchen had marble countertops and appliances that looked like they belonged in a restaurant. The living room could have fit her entire apartment inside it twice. "This is where you live?" The question came out small, inadequate. "One of several properties." Leonid shrugged off his jacket, draping it over the back of a chair. "But yes, this is my primary residence when I'm in the city. You'll stay here. For 2 years, if necessary." He loosened his tie, and Clara was struck by how normal the gesture seemed, like they were any married couple coming home after a long day, like she hadn't just been coerced into this in front of 150 witnesses. Her hands started shaking. She pressed them against her thighs, trying to stop it, but the trembling spread up her arms, into her chest. The panic she'd been holding back in the car came rushing up all at once. "I need to call Emma." Her voice came out tight. "You said 2 hours. It's been... I don't even know how long. I don't have my phone. I need to..." "She's safe." Leonid pulled out his own phone, tapped the screen, then turned it to face her. It was a video feed, live, based on the timestamp in the corner. Emma sat at a kitchen table Clara didn't recognize, eating what looked like chicken nuggets and French fries. Clara's mother sat beside her, looking shaken but unharmed. A woman in a dark suit stood by the door, arms crossed, clearly security. Emma was talking, animated, gesturing with a French fry. She didn't look scared. She looked fine, normal, like this was just another day. Clara's knees went weak. She grabbed the edge of the counter to steady herself. "Where is she?" "Another property about 20 minutes from here. Your mother is with her and 2 of my people are providing security. They have instructions to keep her comfortable and entertained until we can arrange a proper introduction." "A proper..." Clara's laugh came out strangled. "You want me to introduce you to my daughter? As what, her new stepfather?" "Eventually, yes." Leonid pocketed his phone. "But not today. Today she's safe, fed, and distracted. Tomorrow we'll figure out how to explain this in a way that doesn't traumatize her." Clara stared at him. He said it so calmly, like arranging the emotional well-being of a 5-year-old he'd never met was just another item on a to-do list. Like he did this sort of thing all the time. Maybe he did. She had no idea what this man's life actually looked like. "I want to see her," Clara said. "In person. Not on a screen. Tomorrow. Tonight." "Tomorrow," Leonid repeated, firmer this time. "Right now you're in shock. You're exhausted. You're not in any state to explain this situation to a child, and frankly, neither am I. We both need time to process what just happened before we bring Emma into it. Don't tell me what I need. You're swaying on your feet." He crossed the space between them in 2 steps, catching her arm as she stumbled. "When did you last eat?" Clara blinked at him. This morning, maybe. I don't remember. Sit down." "I don't want to..." "Clara." He said her name quietly, and something in his tone made her actually look at him. His eyes were dark, unreadable, but not unkind. "You've been running on adrenaline for hours. If you don't sit down and eat something, you're going to collapse. And I'd prefer not to carry you to bed on our wedding night. The optics are terrible." The joke was so unexpected that Clara almost laughed. Almost. Instead, she let him guide her to the couch, sinking into leather that was probably softer than her own mattress. Leonid disappeared into the kitchen. She heard the fridge open, cabinets closing, the clink of dishes. He moved with the efficiency of someone who actually knew his way around a kitchen, which felt incongruous with everything else about him. "Do you cook?" Clara asked. Her voice sounded distant. "When necessary." He came back with a plate, cheese, crackers, grapes, some kind of cured meat she didn't recognize. He set it on the coffee table in front of her, then handed her a glass of water. "Eat, please." Clara looked at the food. Her stomach turned. "I'm not hungry." "Eat anyway." She picked up a cracker, more to make him stop hovering than because she wanted it. It tasted like cardboard in her mouth, but she forced herself to swallow. Then another. And another. By the 4th one, she realized she was actually starving. Leonid sat in the chair across from her, watching, not hovering, not commenting, just watching, making sure she ate. It should have felt intrusive. Instead, it felt oddly grounding, like he was an anchor keeping her from floating away entirely. "The police," Clara said between bites. "You were supposed to go to the station. I sent my lawyer instead." He pulled out his phone again, scrolling through what looked like a lengthy email. "They have questions about Michael's accounts, the timing of the transfers, my business relationship with him. Standard procedure when someone commits fraud of this magnitude." "Are you in trouble?" "No." He said it with absolute certainty. "Michael stole from me, not the other way around. I'm a victim in this situation, albeit one with significantly more resources than most." Clara ate another cracker. "What kind of business were you in with Michael?" "Investment management. He handled several of my portfolios, moved money between accounts, managed offshore holdings. He was good at it, very good, which is why I trusted him with access most people never get. And he used that access to rob you. Yes? $4 million. 4.3, Leonid corrected, though the number's somewhat fluid depending on exchange rates and market fluctuations. By the time we freeze his accounts, it could be more or less. Clara set down the cracker. "You talk about it like it's nothing." "It's not nothing, but it's also not insurmountable." He leaned back in his chair, studying her. "I'm more interested in the principle than the money. Michael made a choice. He decided to steal from me, and he decided to use you as a shield in the process. That requires a response. And marrying me is the response?" "Part of it." "What's the rest?" Leonid smiled, and this time there was nothing pleasant about it. "You don't need to worry about that." A chill ran down Clara's spine. She thought about the men who'd flanked him in the church, the easy authority in his voice, the way the police officer had looked at him, wary, respectful, like she knew exactly who she was dealing with and wasn't sure she wanted to push. "What do you actually do?" Clara asked. "For work, I mean, because investment management doesn't explain." She gestured vaguely at the penthouse, the security detail, the resources he could apparently deploy at will. "I facilitate transactions," Leonid said, "between parties who prefer discretion." "That's not an answer. It's the answer you're getting tonight." He stood, buttoning his cuffs. "You should rest. There's a bedroom at the end of the hall, second door on the left. It's yours. Ensuite bathroom, walk-in closet, everything you'll need. I don't have any clothes. Someone will bring your things from your apartment tomorrow. For tonight, there should be something in the closet that fits well enough." Clara looked down at her wedding dress, suddenly aware of how ridiculous she must look. White lace and tulle, sitting on a stranger's couch, eating cheese and crackers like this was a normal Saturday evening. "I can't believe this is happening," she said quietly. Leonid paused on his way to the kitchen. "Neither can I, if it helps." "It doesn't." "No, I didn't think it would." He picked up his jacket, slinging it over his shoulder. "I have calls to make. Try to sleep. We'll talk more in the morning." He disappeared down the hallway before Clara could respond, leaving her alone in the cavernous living room. She sat there for a long time, watching the sun set over the city. The light changed from gold to orange to deep purple, shadows lengthening across the floor. Somewhere below, the city kept moving. People going to dinner, heading home from work, living normal lives where they didn't get married to strangers who talked about crime like it was a business transaction. Eventually, Clara made herself stand. Her legs ached, feet screaming from hours in heels she wasn't used to wearing. She kicked them off, left them by the couch, and walked barefoot down the hallway. The bedroom Leonid had indicated was bigger than her entire apartment. King-sized bed with sheets that looked obscenely soft, more windows overlooking the city, a door that led to a bathroom with a tub the size of a small pool. Claire caught sight of herself in the mirror and stopped. She looked like a ghost, pale, hollow-eyed, hair falling down around her shoulders where pins had come loose. The dress was wrinkled and stained. There was a smudge of something on the hem, probably from the chapel floor. Her makeup was a disaster. She looked like a bride who'd been left at the altar, which technically she had been. Clara started pulling pins out of her hair, letting them clatter into the sink. Her scalp ached where they'd been holding everything in place. She found a zipper at the back of the dress, managed to get it halfway down before her arms gave up. The dress was complicated, designed to need help getting in and out of it. She was trapped. The absurdity of it hit her all at once. She was stuck in a wedding dress, in a stranger's penthouse, married to a man she didn't know, her daughter 20 minutes away with armed guards. This morning, her biggest worry had been whether the flowers would arrive on time. Clara sank down onto the edge of the tub and started laughing. It came out harsh, jagged, teetering on the edge of sobs. She pressed her hands over her mouth, trying to muffle it, but it kept coming. Laughter or crying, she wasn't sure which, maybe both at once. A knock on the door made her freeze. "Clara?" Leonid's voice muffled through the wood. "Are you all right?" She wanted to say yes. She wanted to tell him to go away, that she was fine, that she didn't need anything from him. Instead, she heard herself say, "I can't get out of the dress." Silence. Then carefully, "May I help?" Clara closed her eyes. This was humiliating. Asking the man who'd coerced her into marriage to help her undress on their wedding night. But the alternative was sleeping in the damn thing, and she couldn't do that. She just couldn't. "Come in," she said. The door opened. Leonid stepped inside, and Clara was struck by how different he looked without the jacket. Just the white shirt and dark slacks, sleeves rolled up to his elbows. He looked younger, somehow. Less intimidating. Still dangerous, though. She could see it in the way he moved, controlled and deliberate. "Turn around," he said quietly. Clara stood, turned her back to him. She felt his fingers on the zipper, careful not to touch her skin as he pulled it down the rest of the way. The dress loosened, heavy fabric sliding off her shoulders. "Thank you," Clara said. Her voice came out rough. "There are clothes in the closet. Should be something comfortable." He stepped back, giving her space. "I'll be in my office if you need anything. It's across the hall." He left before she could respond, closing the door gently behind him. Clara stood there in her slip and stockings, the wedding dress pooled around her feet like a discarded skin. She stepped out of it, left it on the bathroom floor, and went to investigate the closet. Leonid hadn't been lying. There were clothes, women's clothes in various sizes, still with tags attached. T-shirts, sweatpants, jeans, even pajamas. It looked like he'd had someone buy out half a department store just in case. She grabbed a pair of soft pants and a loose shirt, changed quickly, then collapsed onto the bed. The sheets were as soft as they looked. The mattress was perfect. Under any other circumstances, Clara would have appreciated the luxury. Tonight, she just pulled the blanket over her head and tried not to think about anything at all. She must have slept, because when she opened her eyes again, the room was dark and her phone was buzzing on the nightstand. Clara blinked at it, confused. She didn't have her phone. She'd left it at the chapel, turned off in her purse in the bridal suite. But there it was, charging cable plugged in, screen lit up with notifications. 43 missed calls, 67 text messages, more emails than she could count. Clara picked it up with shaking hands. The most recent texts were from Jessica. "Clara, please tell me you're okay. Your mom is freaking out. That guy who took you said Emma is safe, but nobody knows where you are. Please answer me." There were messages from her mother, from coworkers, from people she hadn't talked to in years who'd apparently heard about the wedding disaster through the grapevine. Everyone wanted to know if she was alive, if she'd been kidnapped, if she needed help. Clara's finger hovered over Jessica's contact. She should call. She should explain. She should... What? What could she possibly say that would make any of this make sense? She set the phone down and walked out into the hallway instead. The apartment was quiet, but there was light coming from under one of the doors. The office, Clara assumed. She knocked softly. "Come in." Leonid sat behind a massive desk, laptop open in front of him, reading glasses perched on his nose. He looked up when she entered, and she saw the fatigue in his eyes before he hit it. "You got my phone," Clara said. "One of my people retrieved it from the chapel, along with your purse, your mother's things, and Jessica's jacket. They'll be returned tomorrow." "How did you unlock it?" "I didn't. It's been in airplane mode since we brought it here. I assumed you'd want to decide when to turn it back on." He closed the laptop. "Trouble sleeping? Everyone thinks I've been kidnapped." "Have you?" Clara almost laughed. "I don't know. Have I?" "You're free to leave whenever you want." Leonid gestured to the door. "Elevator works both ways, though I'd appreciate it if you'd wait until morning and let me arrange security before you go wandering around the city in pajamas." "Why do I need security?" "Because Michael is smart enough to realize your leverage and stupid enough to try using that leverage himself." Because you're now married to me, which makes you a target for anyone who has issues with my business practices. Because the world is not particularly safe for women traveling alone at night. He paused. Take your pick. Clara wrapped her arms around herself. This is insane. Yes. I don't even know you. No. I have a daughter. I know. Leonid took off his glasses, rubbing the bridge of his nose. Clara, I understand this situation is far from ideal, but it is the situation we're in, so we can either spend the next 2 years fighting about it, or we can try to make it work. Your choice. You didn't give me a choice at the chapel? I gave you options. They weren't good options, but they were options. He stood, moving to the window. The city spread out below them, lights twinkling in the darkness. I'm not going to pretend this is fair, it's not. But life rarely is, and right now, we're both dealing with the consequences of Michael's decisions. He ruined everything, Claire's voice cracked. I trusted him. I let him into my life, into Emma's life. I gave him access to everything, and he took it all and left. Like we were nothing. You weren't nothing to him. Leonid turned to face her. You were useful. That's different, and in some ways worse. He saw value in you, just not the kind you wanted him to see. The words hit harder than Clara expected. She sank into the chair across from his desk, suddenly exhausted again. How do you know Emma's safe? She asked quietly. Because I have 6 people watching her right now. 3 outside the building, 2 inside, 1 monitoring the security feeds. If anyone even looks at her wrong, I'll know about it before they finish the thought. That's excessive. That's necessary. He sat on the edge of the desk, closer to her now. I don't make promises I can't keep, Clara. I told you she'd be safe. She will be. What about me? You're safe too. From everyone except you. Leonid was quiet for a moment. You think I'm going to hurt you? It wasn't a question, but Clara answered anyway. I don't know what you're going to do. That's the problem. Then let me be clear. He leaned forward, elbows on his knees, meeting her eyes directly. I will not hurt you. I will not force you into anything you don't want. I will not touch you without permission. This arrangement is exactly what I outlined at the chapel. A marriage in name, a contract in practice, and a temporary solution to a complicated problem. When it's over, you walk away free and clear. And if I break the contract? Then we renegotiate. He shrugged. I'm not in the business of holding people hostage, Clara. That's inefficient and messy. What I want is stability, discretion, and time to handle Michael without him using you as a distraction. That's all. Clara wanted to believe him. She wanted to trust that this was really as simple as he made it sound. But nothing about this man was simple. What happens tomorrow? She asked. Tomorrow, I introduce you to my lawyer. We draft a proper contract with every protection you asked for, and probably a few you didn't think of. You see, Emma, we figure out what to tell her, and we start building a routine that works for all of us. That's it? That's it. What about Michael? Leonid's expression went cold. Michael is no longer your concern. Focus on yourself and your daughter. Let me handle the rest. Clara didn't ask what handling it meant. She wasn't sure she wanted to know. She stood, exhaustion pulling at her. I should try to sleep. Wait. Leonid reached into his desk drawer, pulled out a small box, and handed it to her. You'll need this. Clara opened it. Inside was a ring, simple, elegant, white gold with a small diamond. Not flashy, not ostentatious, just beautiful. It's a wedding ring, she said stupidly. You're my wife. People will notice if you're not wearing one. He took it from the box, held it up. May I? Clara extended her hand without thinking. He slid the ring onto her finger and it fit perfectly. Of course it did. He probably had her ring size from some file his people had compiled in the 2 hours between the chapel and now. The weight of it felt strange, foreign, real in a way the ceremony hadn't been. Thank you, Clara said, though she wasn't sure what she was thanking him for. Get some sleep. Leonid went back to his laptop, dismissing her gently. Morning comes early. Clara walked back to the bedroom, the ring catching the light as she moved. She climbed into bed, pulled the covers up, and stared at the ceiling. Her phone buzzed again. More messages, more missed calls, more people demanding answers she didn't have. Tomorrow, she'd have to face them. Tomorrow, she'd have to explain to Emma that Mommy got married to someone new, that they were going to live in a different place now, that everything was going to change. Tomorrow, she'd have to figure out how to live a life she'd never chosen. But tonight, in the darkness of a stranger's guest room, wearing borrowed clothes and a wedding ring she hadn't asked for, Clara let herself cry. Not loud, not dramatic, just quiet tears that soaked into the expensive pillowcase and didn't change anything at all. Somewhere across the hall, Leonid was still working. She could see the light under his door, hear the faint sound of his voice as he spoke to someone in Russian. And in another building 20 minutes away, Emma was hopefully asleep, safe and unaware that her entire world had just shifted on its axis. Clara touched the ring on her finger, turning it slowly. She'd made her choice. For better or worse, she was in this now. All she could do was survive it. Morning came with the smell of coffee and the sound of voices in the kitchen. Clara woke disoriented, tangled in sheets that were too soft, sunlight streaming through windows she didn't recognize. For a few blessed seconds, she couldn't remember where she was or why. Then she saw the ring on her finger, and everything came crashing back. She sat up slowly, head pounding. The clock on the nightstand read 8:15. She'd slept for maybe 4 hours total, waking every time her brain remembered what had happened and jolted her back to consciousness. The voices in the kitchen got louder. Clara grabbed the robe hanging on the bathroom door and ventured out into the hallway. Leonid stood at the counter pouring coffee into 2 mugs. Across from him sat a woman in her 50s, impeccably dressed in a gray suit, reading glasses perched on her nose as she scrolled through a tablet. She looked up when Clara entered, and her expression shifted from neutral professionalism to something that might have been sympathy. "Mrs. Orlov," she said, standing, "I'm Catherine Volkov, Mr. Orlov's attorney." The name hit Clara like a slap. Mrs. Orlov. That was her now. She'd gone to sleep Clara Whitmore and woken up someone else entirely. "Just Clara is fine," she managed. Catherine nodded, gesturing to the empty chair. "Please, sit. We have a lot to cover this morning." Leonid slid a mug of coffee across the counter toward Clara. She took it automatically, grateful for something to do with her hands. The coffee was perfect, cream and sugar already added, exactly how she liked it. She stared at him. "How did you know?" "Your kitchen?" He took a sip of his own coffee, black. "There was a photo on your fridge, you and Emma at a coffee shop. Your cup was visible in the frame. Caramel macchiato with extra cream." I extrapolated. Clara didn't know whether to be impressed or disturbed that he'd paid that much attention. She settled for drinking the coffee and trying not to think about how he'd apparently had people searching her apartment while she slept. Catherine tapped her tablet, pulling up a document. "I've drafted a preliminary agreement based on the parameters Mr. Orlov provided last night. This covers the duration of the marriage, financial arrangements, custody considerations for Emma, and exit clauses. I'll walk you through each section, and you can tell me what needs to be modified." "I don't have a lawyer," Clara said. "You do now." Catherine smiled, and it was genuine. "Mr. Orlov is paying me to represent both parties fairly. My job is to ensure this contract protects your interests as much as his. If at any point you feel I'm not doing that, you're free to hire independent counsel at his expense." Clara looked at Leonid. He was watching her over the rim of his mug, expression unreadable. "You're paying someone to argue against you?" she asked. "I'm paying someone to make sure this agreement is bulletproof and fair. If Catherine says something isn't in your best interest, I listen. Otherwise, this whole thing falls apart the first time we disagree about something, and that helps neither of us." Catherine cleared her throat. "Shall we begin?" For the next 2 hours, Clara learned exactly how much thought could go into dismantling a marriage before it even started. The contract was 47 pages long, single-spaced, covering everything from living arrangements to Emma's education to what happened if one of them died during the 2-year period. Some of it made sense. Leonid would maintain a separate bedroom, wouldn't enter Clara's private spaces without permission, wouldn't make demands on her time or presence beyond what was necessary to maintain the appearance of a legitimate marriage. In return, Clara would live in his home, attend certain social functions when required, and not publicly contradict the story that their marriage was genuine. Some of it was surreal. There was an entire section about Emma's college fund, not just restoring what Michael had stolen, but expanding it significantly. Another section outlined a monthly allowance for Clara that was more than she'd made in the past year. A clause about health care, life insurance, emergency contacts, and some of it was just strange. Page 32 had a provision about holidays and how they'd be divided. Page 39 covered what happened if either of them started a romantic relationship with someone else during the marriage. There were subsections about social media, about which friends and family would be told the truth, about how they'd handle questions from Emma as she got older. "This feels like a prenup written backward," Clara said, rubbing her temples. "It essentially is." Catherine made a note on her tablet. "The goal is to anticipate every possible complication and address it now, while everyone's thinking clearly. Much easier than trying to negotiate during a crisis." "What about Michael?" Clara asked. "Is there anything in here about him?" Catherine glanced at Leonid, who nodded once. "Page 43, section 7, Catherine said. "Mr. Orlov agrees not to involve you in any legal or extra-legal proceedings against Michael Chen. You will not be called as a witness, asked to provide information, or in any way entangled in the recovery of stolen assets. That situation is completely separate from your arrangement." Clara found the section, reading it twice. "What does extra-legal mean?" "It means if I handle Michael outside the court system, you won't know about it," Leonid said flatly. "And you won't be implicated." "Handle him how? That's not your concern. He's the father of my child. It's absolutely my concern." Leonid set down his mug carefully. "Michael Chen hasn't seen Emma in 8 months. He hasn't paid child support in 6. Before he stole from me, he was planning to marry you and skip the country without telling you, leaving you with his debts and no forwarding address. He is not a father. He's a sperm donor with legal paperwork." The words were harsh, but they weren't wrong. Michael had stopped seeing Emma right around the time he proposed to Clara, claiming work was too demanding. She'd made excuses for him, told Emma that Daddy was busy, but he loved her, that things would get better after the wedding. She'd been so stupid. "I don't want Emma to know her father is a criminal," Clara said quietly. "She won't hear it from me." Leonid's voice softened fractionally. "When she's old enough to ask questions, you can decide what to tell her. Until then, as far as she knows, Michael left and we moved on. Simple." Catherine made another note. "I'll add a confidentiality clause to that section. Mr. Orlov will not disclose information about Michael's criminal activities to Emma or in her presence." Clara nodded, throat tight. She turned the page, kept reading. There was so much here, so many contingencies, so many ways this could go wrong. But there were also protections she hadn't thought to ask for. If Leonid's business dealings put them in danger, Clara could break the contract with no penalty. If his behavior became threatening or controlling, she could leave immediately with financial support for 6 months while she got back on her feet. If Emma ever felt unsafe, Clara had the authority to remove her from the situation, no questions asked. "You really thought of everything," she said. "I tried." Leonid leaned back in his chair. "Anything missing?" Clara thought about it. About Emma. About the life they'd had. About the life they were walking into. About all the things that could go wrong that weren't covered in 47 pages of legal language. "What about Emma's routine?" she asked. "She's 5. She needs stability, consistency. Her school, her friends, her schedule. I don't want her whole world turned upside down because of this." Catherine looked at Leonid, who nodded. "Add a section about maintaining Emma's existing routine as much as possible. School stays the same. Extracurriculars stay the same. Social connections stay the same. We adapt around her, not the other way around." "What if she needs therapy?" Clara pressed. "Because of the upheaval, or because she's confused about Michael, or because living with you is weird for her. I want it in writing that she gets whatever support she needs." "Agreed." "Full mental health coverage for Emma, no questions asked, provider of your choice. And I want regular check-ins, with Catherine or someone neutral, every month, at minimum. So if something's not working, we can adjust the contract instead of just enduring it." Leonid exchanged a glance with Catherine, who was typing rapidly. "Monthly reviews for the first 6 months," he said. "Then quarterly, unless either party requests more frequent meetings. Fair?" "Fair," Clara agreed. They kept going. Clara asked for a provision about Emma's birthday parties, about Christmas morning, about the small rituals that made childhood feel secure. Leonid countered with requests about social events he'd need Clara to attend, about how they'd present themselves to his business associates, about maintaining the fiction that this was a real marriage to anyone outside their inner circle. It was strange negotiating the terms of her own life like it was a business deal, but it was also clarifying. Everything laid out in black and white. No room for misunderstanding or manipulation. This was the deal. These were the terms. Sign here. By the time they finished, it was past 11. Clara's coffee had gone cold and her head felt stuffed with legalese. Catherine printed 2 copies of the revised contract, sliding one across the table to Clara. Read this tonight. Make notes. Ask questions. We'll reconvene tomorrow morning and finalize everything. Don't sign anything until you're completely satisfied with every word. What if I want to add something later? Then we amend the contract. It's not set in stone. Catherine started packing up her tablet and files. This is a living document, Clara. It should evolve as your situation does. She left a few minutes later, and Clara was alone with Leonid again. The silence felt heavier without Catherine as a buffer. You should eat something, Leonid said, already moving toward the kitchen. And then we'll go see Emma. Clara's heart jumped. Now? I promised you'd see her today. It's today. He pulled ingredients from the fridge. Eggs, cheese, vegetables. Omelet? I can make my own breakfast. I'm already cooking. Sit down. Clara sat, watching him work. He moved efficiently, no wasted motion, like everything he did. The omelet came together quickly, perfectly folded, plated with toast and fruit. You really do cook, she said. I lived alone for a long time. The alternative was starving or eating takeout every night. He slid the plate in front of her. Eat. We leave in 20 minutes. The food was good. Better than good, actually. Clara ate mechanically, her mind already racing ahead to seeing Emma, to trying to explain this situation in a way a 5-year-old could understand. She was still figuring out what to say when they pulled up to a brownstone in a quiet residential neighborhood 20 minutes later. It looked nothing like the penthouse. Older, warmer, the kind of place where families lived. You own this too? Clara asked as they climbed the front steps. I own a lot of things. Leonid knocked twice, then opened the door without waiting for an answer. It's me, he called out. A woman appeared from the kitchen, the same one Clara had seen on the video feed last night, still in a dark suit, still radiating professional competence. Mr. Orlov? Mrs. Orlov. Emma and her grandmother are in the living room. Clara barely heard her. She was already moving, following the sound of Emma's voice, desperate to see her daughter and confirm she was really okay. Emma sat on the floor surrounded by coloring books and crayons, tongue sticking out in concentration as she filled in a picture of a unicorn. Clara's mother sat on the couch nearby, looking exhausted and furious and relieved all at once when she saw Clara. Mommy! Emma scrambled to her feet, running over and throwing her arms around Clara's legs. You're here. Grandma said you were coming, but I didn't know when, and we had pancakes, and there's a whole room upstairs with toys, and... Clara dropped to her knees, pulling Emma into a hug so tight the girl squeaked. She smelled like syrup, and crayons, and home. And Clara felt something in her chest unclench. Hey, baby, she whispered into Emma's hair. I missed you. I missed you too. Where did you go? Grandma said you had to leave the wedding because of important grown-up stuff, but she wouldn't tell me what stuff, and I wanted to see you get married, but... Emma, take a breath. Clara pulled back, smoothing her daughter's hair. I'm sorry I left so suddenly. Something came up, something unexpected, and I had to deal with it. But I'm here now, okay? Emma nodded, already distracted by Leonid standing in the doorway. Who's that? Clara's mother stood up, positioning herself between Emma and Leonid like a human shield. Clara, what the hell is going on? These people showed up at the church, told me I had to come with them, wouldn't let me call anyone. Mom, it's okay. It's not okay. You disappeared with some strange man, nobody knew where you were, and then I get dragged to this house with armed guards, like I'm in witness protection. Mrs. Whitmore. Leonid's voice cut through the rising panic calmly. I apologize for the confusion and the stress. I'm Leonid Orlov. Your daughter and I were married yesterday at St. Augustine's Chapel. Clara's mother stared at him, then at Clara, then back at him. You what? Emma's eyes went wide. You got married? To him? Clara took a deep breath. This was the moment she'd been dreading, the conversation she'd rehearsed a dozen different ways in her head during the drive over. None of the rehearsals had felt adequate. Yes, she said, meeting Emma's confused gaze. I married Leonid yesterday. I know that's confusing, sweetheart, especially since you were expecting me to marry Michael, but things changed very quickly and where's Michael? Emma interrupted. Did he go away like Daddy did? The comparison hit Clara like a fist. Emma's biological father had left when she was 2, promised to stay in touch, and then vanished completely. Michael was the second man to abandon her. Michael had to leave, Clara said carefully. He wasn't right for us, Emma. I know that's hard to understand, but sometimes grown-ups make mistakes. I thought he was going to be part of our family, but I was wrong. So you married someone else instead? Emma looked at Leonid with open suspicion. On the same day? It's complicated, Clara started, but Emma was already shaking her head. That's what grown-ups always say when they don't want to explain things. Out of the mouths of babes. Clara glanced at Leonid helplessly. He crouched down to Emma's level, moving slowly, giving her space. You're right, he said. It is complicated. But here's the simple version. Your mom needed help with something important, and I was able to help her. In return, she agreed to marry me. We're going to live together for a while and see how it goes. Emma frowned. Do you love my mom? Clara's breath caught. Leonid didn't even hesitate. I respect her very much, he said, and I promise to take care of both of you. That's the most important thing. But you don't love her. Not yet, but sometimes love takes time. He tilted his head slightly. Do you like unicorns? The subject change was so abrupt that Emma blinked. What? Unicorns. Leonid nodded at the coloring book. You were coloring one when we came in. I was wondering if you like them. They're okay, I guess. There's a carousel in the park 3 blocks from where we'll be living. It has a unicorn on it. We could go see it sometime if you want. Emma studied him with the intense scrutiny only a 5-year-old could manage. Are you trying to bribe me? Leonid's lips twitched. Yes. The honesty seemed to surprise her. At least you're not lying about it. I try not to lie to people I live with. Makes things simpler. Emma looked at Clara. Are we really going to live with him? Clara nodded. For a while, yes. Is that okay? Do I still get to go to my school? Yes. And see my friends? Yes. And keep my stuffed animals? All of them? Emma considered this, then shrugged with the remarkable adaptability of children. Okay. Can I see the apartment? Clara almost laughed. Just like that, the crisis was averted. No tears, no tantrum, just a 5-year-old's practical assessment that her life wasn't ending, and maybe there was a carousel involved. We can go right now if you want, Leonid said, standing. Can I bring my coloring books? Bring whatever you want. Emma ran off to gather her things, leaving Clara alone with her mother and Leonid. Clara's mother waited until Emma was out of earshot, then turned on Clara with barely suppressed fury. Do you want to tell me what the hell is actually going on? Because that explanation was bullshit. Mom, Michael stole money from this man, didn't he? That's what the police were asking about. And now you're married to him as what? Payment? Clara, this is insane. It's handled, Clara said firmly. I know it looks crazy, but we have a contract, we have legal protections, and Emma is safe. That's all that matters right now. All that matters? You just married a complete stranger. I was about to marry Michael, and I didn't really know him either, apparently. The bitterness in Clara's voice surprised even her. At least this time I know exactly what I'm getting into. Her mother looked at Leonid, who'd remained silent during the exchange. Are you going to hurt my daughter? No, ma'am. Are you going to hurt my granddaughter? No, ma'am. Can you promise me that? Yes. Leonid met her gaze steadily. I give you my word. Clara and Emma will be safe in my care. Clara's mother didn't look convinced, but she must have seen something in his face that reassured her, because she sighed and sank back onto the couch. This is the craziest thing I've ever been part of. Welcome to my weekend, Clara muttered. Emma came barreling back in, backpack stuffed with coloring supplies, dragging a small suitcase behind her. I'm ready. Can we go see the carousel on the way? If your mother says it's okay, as Leonid looked at Clara. Clara nodded, still trying to process how quickly this was moving. Sure. We can see the carousel. The drive back to the penthouse was surreal. Emma chattered the entire time, asking questions about the building, the neighborhood, whether there were other kids nearby, if she could have a pet fish. Leonid answered each question patiently, and Clara watched the interaction with a mix of relief and unease. He was good with Emma, respectful, honest, not talking down to her or trying too hard to win her over. It should have been reassuring. Instead, it made Clara realize how much power this man now had over her life. If he'd been cruel to Emma, if he'd been dismissive or controlling, Clara would have found a way out. She would have risked the lawsuits and the financial ruin, would have fought tooth and nail to protect her daughter. But he wasn't cruel. He was careful and considerate, and that made it so much harder to justify leaving. They stopped at the carousel like he'd promised. Emma picked the unicorn, climbing on with the fearlessness of childhood, waving at Clara and Leonid as the ride started. "She's resilient," Leonid observed, hands in his pockets as they watched. "She's had to be." Clara crossed her arms. Her father left, Michael left. Now she's living with a stranger. That's a lot for a 5-year-old. "Do you want me to stay away from her? I can arrange for separate living spaces if you think my presence is—" "No." The word came out sharper than Clara intended. "No, if we're doing this, we're doing it properly. Emma needs stability, consistency. Having you around sometimes, but not others, would just confuse her more." "All right." They watched the carousel spin, tinny music playing, Emma's delighted laughter carrying over the sound. "She asked if I love you," Leonid said after a moment. "I heard." "I didn't lie to her." "I know." "Does that bother you?" Clara thought about it. "I don't know. Everything about this bothers me, but lying would have bothered me more, I think. For what it's worth, I meant what I said. About respect." Leonid glanced at her. "I don't know you well enough to love you, but I do respect the choice you made yesterday. That took courage. It took desperation. Sometimes those are the same thing." The carousel slowed to a stop. Emma hopped off the unicorn, running over to them with flushed cheeks and wind-blown hair. "Can we do it again?" "Later," Clara promised. "Right now, let's go see your new room." The penthouse looked different in daylight, less intimidating somehow. Emma ran from room to room, exploring with the enthusiasm of a kid who'd just been told she could live in a castle. Leonid showed her to the bedroom next to Clara's, already furnished with a kid-sized bed, a bookshelf full of children's books, a toy box that looked suspiciously new. "When did you do all this?" Clara asked, as Emma dove into the toy box with a squeal of delight. "Last night. I had people bring things over while we were meeting with Catherine." He leaned against the doorframe, watching Emma. "I wasn't sure what a 5-year-old needed, so I had them get a variety." "You had someone furnish a child's bedroom overnight." "I have efficient staff." Clara shook her head, not sure whether to be impressed or disturbed. "This is going to take some getting used to. For all of us." Emma pulled out a stuffed elephant, hugging it to her chest. "Can I keep this?" "Everything in this room is yours," Leonid told her. "Even the books?" "Even the books." Emma beamed, already pulling volumes off the shelf to examine them. Clara felt something tight in her chest loosen slightly. Maybe this could work. Maybe they could build something stable out of this disaster, give Emma the security she deserved, navigate the next 2 years without destroying each other in the process. Or maybe Clara was kidding herself, and this whole arrangement would blow up spectacularly the first time reality didn't match the contract. Either way, she was in it now. For better or worse, till death do us part. The first week was chaos disguised as routine. Clara's things arrived on Tuesday, boxes and boxes of a life she'd been building for 5 years, now crammed into a penthouse that didn't feel like home. Emma's toys scattered across the living room despite Clara's best efforts to contain them. The kitchen became a battleground of competing preferences. Clara liked cooking simple meals, Leonid's chef insisted on preparing elaborate dinners, and Emma just wanted chicken nuggets. By Thursday, Clara had unpacked exactly 3 boxes and given up on the rest. She stood in the middle of her bedroom, surrounded by half-empty containers, and wondered how she'd accumulated so much stuff that meant so little. Clothes she never wore, books she'd meant to read, trinkets from a marriage that had ended badly, and an engagement that had ended worse. "You don't have to keep any of it." Clara turned. Leonid stood in the doorway. He had a habit of appearing silently, like he'd learned to move through the world without making noise. "What?" "The things from your old apartment. If they don't fit your life now, get rid of them." He nodded at a box full of framed photos. Start fresh. Clara looked at the photos. Her and Michael at the beach. Her and Michael at Christmas. Michael holding Emma, back when he'd still pretended to care. She grabbed the box and shoved it toward the door. Can you have someone get rid of these? All of them? Every single one with his face in it. Leonid picked up the box without comment, carrying it out. Clara heard him speaking to someone in Russian, heard footsteps, heard the elevator doors close. When he came back, his hands were empty. Anything else? Clara surveyed the room. I don't know. I don't know what I need anymore. Then figure it out as you go. He leaned against the doorframe. We're having dinner with my business associates Saturday night. Formal event, about 30 people. Catherine will brief you on who's who. Clara's stomach dropped. I thought we were easing into the public appearances. This is easing into it. They're people I trust, relatively speaking, and we need to establish that our marriage is legitimate before the rumors get out of control. What rumors? That I coerced you, that you're being held against your will, that this is some kind of criminal arrangement. He paused. All of which are partially true, but we'd prefer people didn't know that. I don't have anything to wear to a formal dinner. I'll have someone bring options tomorrow. I don't want your money for clothes. Clara, Leonid's voice was patient but firm. You're my wife. You'll be representing me at these events. The clothes aren't for you, they're for the image we're projecting. Let me handle it. Clara wanted to argue, but she was too tired. Fine, but nothing too expensive. I'll tell them to remove the price tags so you won't know. That's not... She stopped, seeing the faint smile on his face. Are you making a joke? Possibly. He straightened. Emma's asking for you, something about a tea party. Clara found her daughter in the living room, surrounded by stuffed animals arranged in a circle. A plastic tea set sat in the middle, and Emma was carefully pouring imaginary tea into tiny cups. Mommy, you have to sit here. Emma patted the spot next to a one-eyed bear. Mr. Elephant is being rude and won't share the cookies. Clara sat, accepting an empty teacup. That's very inconsiderate of Mr. Elephant. I know. I told him sharing is caring, but he doesn't listen. Emma handed a cup to the bear, then frowned. Where's Leonid? The question caught Clara off guard. In less than a week, Emma had stopped calling him that man, or the new guy, and started using his name. She said it carefully, like she was still testing out how it felt. He's working, sweetheart. He's always working. Emma poured more imaginary tea. Doesn't he get tired? Probably. You should tell him to take a break. That's what you always tell me when I'm doing too much. Clara smiled despite herself. I'll mention it. But she didn't. Leonid worked late every night, usually locked in his office until well past midnight. Clara would hear him on phone calls in Russian, his voice sharp and commanding. Sometimes other voices joined him, the men who'd been at the chapel, she assumed. His security detail, or business partners, or whatever they were. She tried not to think too hard about what kind of business required that much security. Friday afternoon, a woman arrived with 6 garment bags. She introduced herself as Vera, helped Clara try on dresses, and didn't blink when Clara admitted she had no idea what was appropriate for a dinner with Leonid's associates. Something that says you belong there, Vera said, pulling out a deep blue dress with clean lines and subtle elegance. Not trying too hard, but not underdressed. Confident. Clara tried it on. It fit perfectly, because of course it did. Everything in Leonid's world fit perfectly. How did you know my size? She asked. Mr. Orlov provided measurements. Vera was already pulling out shoes to match. He's very thorough. That seemed to be his defining characteristic. Thorough, efficient, always 3 steps ahead. It should have felt controlling. Instead, it just felt exhausting trying to keep up. Saturday evening arrived too quickly. Clara spent an hour getting ready, attempting to recreate the polished look Vera had demonstrated. Her hand shook as she applied makeup, and she had to redo her eyeliner twice. Emma watched from the bed, swinging her legs. You look pretty, Mommy. Thanks, baby. Clara turned, smoothing down the dress. Are you okay staying with Grandma tonight? Uh-huh. She said we can watch movies and eat popcorn. Emma tilted her head. Are you nervous? A little. Why? Because I'm meeting a lot of new people, and I want to make a good impression. Just be yourself. That's what you always tell me. Clara smiled, but the advice felt hollow. Being herself hadn't worked out great lately. Being herself had gotten her abandoned at the altar and married to a stranger. Maybe it was time to be someone else for a while. Leonid was waiting in the living room when she emerged, adjusting his cufflinks. He looked up, and something shifted in his expression, brief, quickly controlled, but there. "You look beautiful," he said quietly. Claire's cheeks heated. Vera picked the dress. "Vera has good taste." He held out his arm. "Ready?" No, not even close. But Clara took his arm anyway, letting him guide her to the elevator. The dinner was at a restaurant Clara had walked past 100 times but never imagined entering. The kind of place with a waiting list measured in months, where the menu didn't list prices and the sommelier knew more about wine than Clara knew about anything. Leonid's hand rested on the small of her back as they entered, proprietary but not possessive. It was for show, Clara reminded herself. Everything about tonight was for show. The private dining room was already half full when they arrived. Conversations paused as people noticed them, eyes tracking Clara with undisguised curiosity. "Leonid!" A man in his 60s approached, grinning. "And this must be the bride we've heard so much about." "Clara, this is Viktor Sokolov, old friend, occasional pain in my ass." Leonid's tone was warm, almost affectionate. "Viktor, my wife, Clara." Wife. The word still felt foreign. Clara shook Victor's hand, smiling automatically. "Nice to meet you." "The pleasure is mine. Though I must say, Leonid, you kept this one quiet. Last I heard, you were sworn off marriage entirely." "Things change," Leonid said smoothly. "Clearly." Victor's eyes twinkled. "How did you two meet?" Clara's mind went blank. They hadn't discussed this, hadn't prepared a story, and now she was standing in front of 30 people who expected an answer that wasn't, "He showed up at my failed wedding and offered to solve my problems if I married him instead." "Through a mutual acquaintance," Leonid said, his hand tightening slightly on Clara's back. A warning or reassurance, she couldn't tell. "Michael Chen. You remember him, Victor?" Victor's expression soured. "Unfortunately. I heard he ran into some trouble recently." "He stole from me and fled the country," Leonid said bluntly. "Clara was unfortunately entangled in his mess. We've been helping each other sort it out." It was close enough to the truth that Clara didn't have to lie. She nodded, grateful for his intervention. "Well, his loss is clearly Leonid's gain." Victor squeezed Clara's hand. "Welcome to the family, such as it is." The evening continued in a blur of introductions and small talk. Clara met businessmen and their wives, lawyers, someone who owned a chain of hotels, a woman who ran an art gallery. They were all polite, all curious, all clearly wondering what the hell Clara was doing married to Leonid Orlov. She wondered the same thing. Dinner was 6 courses, each more elaborate than the last. Clara picked at her food, hyper-aware of every movement, every word. Leonid sat beside her, engaging in conversations that skirted the edge of business without quite crossing into it. He was charming when he wanted to be, she realized. Sharp and funny, commanding attention without demanding it. She watched him work the room and understood why people followed him. There was something magnetic about his certainty, his control. It was also terrifying. "So, Clara," said this woman on her left, Natasha, married to one of Leonid's business partners, "what do you do?" "I work in hospital administration," Clara said. "Scheduling, insurance processing, that kind of thing." "Will you continue working now that you're married?" The question was casual, but Clara heard the weight behind it. Would Leonid allow her to work? Would she be expected to play housewife? "Yes," Clara said firmly. "I'm taking a week to settle in, but then I'll be back." Natasha smiled approvingly. "Good for you. Too many women give up their careers when they marry money." "I'm not marrying money," Clara said before she could stop herself. "I'm just married." "Of course." But Natasha's smile said she didn't believe that for a second. Halfway through the 4th course, Clara excused herself to the bathroom. She needed a break from the scrutiny, the questions, the careful dance of maintaining a fiction she barely understood herself. The bathroom was as elegant as the rest of the restaurant. Marble counters, gold fixtures, hand towels that were probably worth more than Clara's car payment. She leaned against the sink, taking slow breaths. The door opened. A woman walked in, Younger than Clara, maybe mid-20s, stunning in a red dress that probably cost more than Clara's monthly salary. "You're Leonid's new wife," she said. Not a question. "Clara." She straightened, wary. "I'm Irina." The woman pulled out a lipstick, applying it with practiced precision. "I dated Leonid 2 years ago, before he decided relationships were inefficient." Clara didn't know what to say to that. "You should know," Irina continued, capping the lipstick. "He's not cruel, but he's also not capable of the kind of emotional connection most people need. He'll take care of you, provide for you, protect you, but he won't love you. He doesn't know how." "I'm not looking for love," Clara said. The words came out defensive. "Everyone's looking for love. We just call it different things." Irina turned to face her directly. "Be careful, Clara. Leonid's world is dangerous. Not just the business part, the whole thing. People who get close to him end up changed, usually not for the better." "Is that what happened to you?" Irina smiled, but it was sad. "I was already damaged when we met. He just made it worse by being exactly what I needed and absolutely wrong at the same time." She left before Clara could respond, the door swinging shut with a soft click. Clara stared at her reflection, Irina's words echoing in her head. Not capable of emotional connection. Dangerous. Changed. She'd known that, hadn't she? She'd seen it in the contract, in the clinical way they'd negotiated the terms of their marriage. This wasn't a romance. It was a transaction. So why did Irina's warning make her chest ache? Clara returned to the table to find Leonid watching the door, expression unreadable. "Everything all right?" "Fine." She sat, reaching for her water glass. Just needed a minute. His eyes searched her face, and she wondered what he saw there. But he just nodded, turning back to his conversation with Victor. The rest of the evening passed without incident. By the time they left, Clara's face hurt from smiling, and her feet screamed from the heels. In the car, Leonid loosened his tie, looking as exhausted as she felt. "You did well," he said. "I lied to 30 people about how we met. You maintained our cover story. That's different." "Is it?" Clara leaned her head against the window. "I met Irina in the bathroom." Leonid went very still. "What did she say?" "That you're not capable of emotional connection, that your world is dangerous, that I should be careful." She's not wrong. The admission surprised Clara. She turned to look at him. "Which part?" "All of it." Leonid stared straight ahead. "I am dangerous, Clara. My business, my associates, the life I lead. It's not safe or normal or anything you signed up for when you imagined getting married." "I didn't sign up for any of this." "No, but you're in it now." He finally looked at her. "Irina's bitter because I ended things when she wanted more than I could give. She wanted love, commitment, emotional availability. I gave her honesty instead. She didn't appreciate it." "What did you tell her?" "That I cared for her but would never love her. That my work would always come first. That she deserved someone who could give her what she needed, and I wasn't that person." He paused. "She told me I was broken. Maybe she was right." Clara didn't know what to say to that. She thought about the contract, about the careful boundaries they'd established, about how he'd promised respect but never love. "Do you want to be able to love someone?" she asked quietly. Leonid considered the question for a long time. "I don't know. It seems inefficient, messy, vulnerable in ways I can't afford." "That's the saddest thing I've ever heard." "Is it? You married me knowing I'd never love you. That was part of the appeal, wasn't it? No emotional complications. Just a clean transaction." He was right. It had been part of the appeal. Claire had been so burned by Michael's betrayal that the idea of a marriage without love had seemed safer. No expectations meant no disappointment. But hearing Leonid say it out loud, hearing him reduce their arrangement to its transactional core, made something in her chest twist. "I need to check on Emma," she said, instead of responding. They rode the rest of the way in silence. At the penthouse, Clara changed into comfortable clothes and called her mother. Emma was already asleep, sprawled across the guest bed with popcorn kernels in her hair. "She had a good time," Clara's mother said. "Unlike you, apparently. You sound exhausted. It was a long night." "Clara," her mother's voice went serious. "Are you happy?" The question caught Clara off guard. Happy? She hadn't even considered happiness as a metric. She was safe. Emma was safe. They had stability and security. That was enough, wasn't it? I'm okay, Mom. That's not what I asked. Clara looked out at the city lights, at the expensive view from her expensive temporary home with her expensive temporary husband. I don't know how to be happy right now, but I'm okay. That's the best I can do. Her mother sighed. All right, but if that changes, if you need out, you call me. Immediately. I don't care about contracts or consequences. You call me. I will, I promise. After they hung up, Clara wandered out to the living room. Leonid was there, jacket off, tie discarded, reading something on his tablet. Emma okay? He asked without looking up. Asleep, popcorn in her hair. That sounds about right. He set down the tablet. I'm sorry about Irina. She shouldn't have ambushed you like that. She wasn't wrong about what she said. No, but it wasn't her place to say it. He stood, moving to the windows. I told you from the beginning what this was, Clara. I haven't lied to you. I know. But you're starting to wish I had. Clara joined him at the window. I don't know what I wish anymore. A week ago, I thought I was marrying someone who loved me. Turns out he didn't. Now I'm married to someone who's honest about not loving me. I'm not sure which is worse. At least with me, you know where you stand. Do I? Because right now I feel like I'm standing on quicksand. But Leonid turned to face her. What do you need from me, Clara? More boundaries? Less interaction? Tell me how to make this work. I need you to be human, she said. Not just efficient or thorough or protective. Human. Messy and flawed. And, I don't know, real. I am real. You're controlled. There's a difference. They stood there close enough that Clara could feel the warmth radiating from him, far enough that the distance felt intentional. I don't know how to be anything else, Leonid said quietly. This is who I am. I thought that was clear. It is. It's just, Clara pressed her hands to her face. Harder than I expected. Do you want out? Because if you do, tell me now. We'll figure something out. I won't hold you to the contract if you're miserable. The offer was genuine. Clara could hear it in his voice, see it in his expression. He'd let her go if she asked. But then what? She'd be back where she started, broke, humiliated, scrambling to rebuild. Emma would lose the stability she was just starting to settle into, and Michael would win because he'd destroyed her life and faced no consequences. No, Clara said. I'm not out. I'm just adjusting. Take your time. We have 2 years. 2 years suddenly felt like forever. Clara excused herself, retreating to her bedroom. She lay in the dark, listening to the sound of Leonid working across the hall, and tried to remember why she'd agreed to this in the first place. Protection, security, stability for Emma. Those things hadn't changed. She had everything she'd asked for, everything the contract promised. She just hadn't expected it to feel so lonely. The next week settled into something resembling routine. Emma started back at school, chattering about her friends and her teacher and the art project they were doing. Clara returned to work, fielding questions about her sudden marriage with vague explanations that satisfied no one. Leonid kept his distance, gave her space, respected every boundary they'd established. It was exactly what Clara had asked for. It was also slowly driving her insane. She found herself watching him when he interacted with Emma. The way he'd sit on the floor for tea parties, the way he'd read her bedtime stories in his accented English, the way he'd carry her to bed when she fell asleep on the couch. He was gentle with her daughter, patient, kind. But with Clara, he remained carefully neutral, polite, professional, detached. Thursday night, Clara found him in the kitchen after Emma had gone to bed. He was making tea, moving through the motions like muscle memory. Can we talk? Clara asked. Leonid looked up, wary. Of course. I've been thinking about what I said last week, about needing you to be human. Clara leaned against the counter. I was wrong. You are human. You're just protected, and I get that. After everything Irina said, after seeing how you operate, I understand why you keep people at arm's length. Where is this going, Clara? I'm trying to say that I don't need you to love me. I never did. But I think... She took a breath. I think we could be friends. Real ones. Not just people living in the same space. Leonid poured hot water over the tea bag, watching the color bleed out. Why? Because we're going to be doing this for 2 years. Because Emma deserves to see healthy relationships, even if ours started in the worst way possible. Because I'm tired of walking on eggshells in my own home. This isn't your home, it's mine. See? That's what I mean. You say things like that and then wonder why I feel like an intruder. Leonid was quiet, stirring honey into his tea. You're right. I'm sorry. That was unnecessary. Apology accepted. Clara grabbed a mug, making her own tea. Friends? He looked at her for a long moment, something unreadable in his dark eyes. Then he clinked his mug against hers. Friends, he agreed. It felt like a small victory. Like maybe, possibly, they could make this work after all. Clara was wrong, because 2 nights later, everything went sideways. The call came at 2 in the morning. Clara woke to voices in the hallway, urgent and low. She grabbed her robe, heart already racing with the kind of panic that came from being a mother. Something was wrong. Emma was hurt. There'd been an accident. But when she opened her door, Emma's room was dark and quiet, her daughter's breathing steady and peaceful. The voices were coming from Leonid's office. Clara moved closer, not quite eavesdropping, but not walking away either. She caught fragments, Russian mostly, too fast for her limited vocabulary, but the tone was unmistakable. Anger, frustration. Something had gone very wrong. The office door flew open. One of Leonid's men emerged, the one she'd seen at the chapel. Dmitri, she thought his name was. He stopped short when he saw Clara. Mrs. Orloff, you should go back to bed. What's happening? Nothing that concerns you. If it's happening in my home at 2 in the morning, it concerns me. Clara crossed her arms. Where's Leonid? Dmitri hesitated, then stepped aside. Leonid sat behind his desk, phone pressed to his ear, jaw tight with barely controlled rage. He looked up when Clara entered, and whatever he saw in her expression made him end the call abruptly. I'll handle it. Keep me updated. He set down the phone. You should be sleeping. So should you. What's going on? Business. Leonid. He rubbed his face, and Clara saw the exhaustion there, the weight of whatever crisis he was managing. Michael made contact. He's demanding money in exchange for information about my accounts. Claims he can access things I didn't know he had access to. He's trying to extort me. Clara's blood went cold. He called you? Sent an encrypted message through channels he shouldn't know about, which means he either has help or he's smarter than I gave him credit for. Leonid stood, pacing to the window. He also mentioned Emma, said I should ask myself if keeping you two was worth the risk. The threat was clear. Clara felt her knees go weak. He can't get to her, Leonid said before she could spiral. I have security on this building, on her school, on every route between here and anywhere she goes. He'd have to be suicidal to try. You don't know that. You don't know what he's capable of. I know exactly what he's capable of. He's a coward and a thief. Threatening a child is desperation, not strategy. He's cornered and trying to find leverage. I'm taking Emma to my mother's. Clara was already turning toward the door. Tonight. Right now. Clara, wait. No, you said she'd be safe. You promised. But now he's threatening her and I'm not. I can't. Her voice broke. Leonid crossed the room in 3 strides, hands on her shoulders, forcing her to look at him. Breathe. Emma is safe. Moving her in the middle of the night will scare her more than staying put. We have eyes on Michael's location. He's still in the Caymans, 3,000 miles away, with no way to get back into the country without us knowing. You can't guarantee that. No, but I can make it damn near impossible. His grip tightened slightly. Trust me, please. Clara wanted to. She wanted to believe that his control extended far enough to keep her daughter safe from a man who'd already proven he'd do anything for money. But trust was in short supply lately. If anything happens to her, it won't. You can't know that. You're right. I can't. Leonid's voice softened. But I can promise that I will do everything in my power to protect her, and my power is considerable. Clara closed her eyes, trying to breathe through the panic. What are you going to do about Michael? Find him. Recover what he stole. Make sure he understands that threatening my family is a mistake he'll regret. Your family, Clara repeated. We're not. You're my wife. Emma is under my protection. That makes you family, whether the marriage is real or not. The words should have felt clinical. Instead, they steadied her. Clara took a shaky breath. It's okay, but I'm checking on Emma. Of course. She went to her daughter's room, stood in the doorway watching Emma sleep. So small, so trusting, completely unaware that the man who'd helped create her was now using her as a bargaining chip. Clara had never hated anyone the way she hated Michael in that moment. She must have stood there too long because Leonid appeared beside her, silent as always. She's safe, he murmured. I swear it. How can you be sure? Because anyone who wants to get to her has to go through me first, and I don't lose Clara. The certainty in his voice was almost frightening. Clara looked at him, really looked, and saw the cold calculation there, the absolute absence of doubt. This was the man Irina had warned her about, dangerous, changed. And right now, Clara was grateful for it. They went back to the living room. Leonid poured 2 glasses of whiskey, handed her one. I don't drink, Clara said. Tonight you do. She took a sip. It burned going down, but it also helped. Tell me what happens now, she said. Now we wait. Michael will make another move. They always do when they think they have leverage. We track him, we corner him, we recover the assets. And then? And then he faces consequences. The way he said it made Clara's stomach twist. What kind of consequences? The legal kind, hopefully. If he cooperates, this goes through proper channels. If he doesn't, Leonid shrugged, then it gets handled differently. You're talking about hurting him. I'm talking about ensuring he can't hurt anyone else. Clara set down her glass. I don't want you to kill him. Leonid's eyebrows rose. I wasn't planning to. But you would, if it came to that. He didn't answer, which was answer enough. He's Emma's father, Clara said quietly. Biologically, at least. Someday she might want to know him, might have questions. I won't have her growing up knowing her father died because of me. He's threatening your daughter for money. That's not a father, Clara. I know, but she doesn't, not yet. Clara met his eyes. Promise me. Whatever you do to handle this, Michael walks away alive. Leonid was quiet for a long moment. That limits my options considerably. I don't care. Promise me. All right. He lives. Leonid picked up his own glass, drained it, but he won't be comfortable, and he won't be free. I can live with that. The crisis shifted something between them. Clara couldn't sleep after that, and apparently neither could Leonid. They sat in the living room as dawn broke over the city, not talking much, just existing in the same space. It felt almost normal. Why did you really marry me? Clara asked as the sun started painting the windows gold. And don't say it was about Michael's debt. You could have handled that a dozen different ways. Leonid considered the question. You reminded me of someone. Who? My sister. She died when I was 17. Car accident, drunk driver. He stared into his empty glass. She was engaged to a man our parents approved of. Rich family, good connections, everything proper. But he was cruel to her in small ways, nothing she could point to, nothing that would justify breaking the engagement, just slowly eroding her sense of self. Clara waited, sensing there was more. The night she died, she was leaving him. Finally worked up the courage. He got angry, they fought. She drove off upset. Leonid's jaw tightened. The accident wasn't his fault technically, but if he'd been kinder, if he hadn't pushed, she wouldn't have been on that road in that state. I'm sorry, Clara said quietly. When I saw you at the chapel, abandoned in a wedding dress with your daughter watching, I saw her, trapped by circumstances, trying to do the right thing, about to be destroyed by a man who didn't deserve her. He finally looked at Clara. I couldn't save my sister, but I could save you. So this was guilt. This was opportunity. I needed a wife to stabilize some business arrangements. You needed resources. It worked out. But it was more than that. Clara could hear it in his voice, see it in the way he wouldn't quite meet her eyes. You're not as detached as you pretend to be, she said. Don't mistake sentimentality for attachment. They're different things. Are they? Leonid stood, ending the conversation. I have calls to make. Try to get some sleep. But Clara didn't sleep. She got Emma ready for school, made breakfast, went through the motions of normal life while her brain kept circling back to Michael's threat and Leonid's promise and the sister who'd died too young. At work, she couldn't focus. Her supervisor noticed, asked if everything was okay. "Just tired," Clara lied. "Wedding stuff catching up with me." How is married life treating you?" Clara thought about Leonid's penthouse, about contracts and boundaries, about sitting in the dark with a man she barely knew while he promised to protect her daughter from a threat he couldn't entirely control. "It's complicated," she said. That afternoon, Catherine called. "We need to meet. Something's come up with the contract." Clara's heart sank. "What kind of something?" "The kind we should discuss in person. Can you come to my office?" An hour later, Clara sat across from Catherine, contract spread between them. "Michael's lawyers made contact," Catherine said. "They're claiming you knew about the theft, that you were complicit. They're threatening to sue for alienation of affection and demanding half of any assets you received from Leonid as part of your marriage." Clara stared at her. "That's insane. I didn't know anything. I lost money too." "I know, but they're trying to create doubt, muddy the waters. If they can make you look complicit, Michael has leverage in his own case." Catherine pulled out another document. "They're also filing for emergency custody of Emma." The world tilted. "What?" "It's a bluff. They have no grounds, but it's designed to scare you, make you more willing to negotiate." "There's nothing to negotiate. He stole from me. He abandoned us. He doesn't get to—" Clara's hands were shaking. She pressed them flat on the desk. "What do we do?" "We call their bluff, file countermotions, demonstrate their claims are baseless, make it clear that pursuing this will cost Michael more than he can afford." Catherine's expression was grim. "But Clara, you need to prepare for this to get ugly. If Michael is desperate enough to threaten Emma, he's desperate enough to throw anything at the wall and see what sticks." Clara left the office in a daze. She picked Emma up from school, held her daughter's hand a little tighter than usual on the walk home. "Mommy, you're squishing my fingers," Emma complained. "Sorry, baby." Clara loosened her grip but didn't let go. At the penthouse, Leonid was waiting. One look at Clara's face and he knew. "What happened?" Clara told him about the lawyers, the custody threat, the accusations. With every word, his expression got darker. "Take Emma to her room," he said quietly. "I need to make some calls." Clara got Emma settled with her coloring books, then returned to find Leonid on the phone, voice cold and clipped. He was speaking English this time, and Clara caught enough to understand he was talking to his own lawyers. "I don't care what it costs. Bury them in motions. Make it so expensive to pursue this that Michael's lawyers drop him as a client." A pause. "Yes, use everything. I want this done." He hung up, noticed Clara in the doorway. "It's handled," he said. "Just like that?" Michael's lawyers are small-time, probably working on contingency. When they realize how much this is going to cost them in resources, they'll back off, and Michael will be alone again. What if they don't back off? Then we go to war, and I don't lose wars, Clara. The confidence should have been reassuring. Instead, it just reminded Clara how out of her depth she was. This was Leonid's world, power plays and legal battles and resources she couldn't imagine. She was just trying to keep her daughter safe. That night, after Emma was in bed, Clara found herself back at Leonid's office door. "Can't sleep?" he asked without looking up from his laptop. "Can't stop thinking." Clara sat in the chair across from him. "About Michael, about Emma, about how screwed up this all is." "Welcome to my life." "How do you do it?" "Stay calm when everything's falling apart." "Practice." "Necessity." "The understanding that panic doesn't solve problems." He closed the laptop. "And the knowledge that I have more resources than most people have problems. Must be nice." "It's useful. Nice is something else entirely." They sat in silence for a moment. Then Clara asked the question that had been nagging at her all day. "Your sister, what was her name?" Leonid looked surprised. "Natalia. Why?" "Because you told me about her and then just stopped, like she was a footnote in an explanation." Clara leaned forward. "She wasn't a footnote. She was your sister. You loved her. Love is past tense when someone's dead." "No, it's not. It just changes." Leonid's expression closed off. This isn't a therapy session, Clara. I know, but we're supposed to be friends, right? Friends know things about each other, real things, not just business arrangements and contract negotiations. Why do you care? Because you're not a robot, even though you do a good impression of one. And because Clara stopped, trying to find the right words. Because I'm tired of being alone in a penthouse with someone I can't connect with. Even if it's temporary, even if it's fake, I need it to feel real. Leonid stood, moved to the window. For a long time, he didn't say anything. She was funny, he finally said. Natalia, always laughing, always finding joy in stupid things. She collected snow globes, terrible ones from tourist shops, had hundreds of them. His voice was soft, distant. After she died, I got rid of them. Couldn't stand looking at them. Now I wish I'd kept at least one. Clara joined him at the window. I'm sorry. It was a long time ago. That doesn't make it hurt less. No, it doesn't. He glanced at her. Is this what friendship looks like? Sharing tragic backstories? Sometimes. Or sometimes it's just sitting together at 2 a.m. because sleep won't come and company helps. I'm not good at company. You're doing fine. They stood there, side by side, watching the city. Clara thought about all the people down there living their normal lives, dealing with their normal problems. She wondered if any of them had accidentally married a Russian businessman to escape debt and were now navigating friendship with someone who'd built walls so high she wasn't sure she'd ever see over them. Probably not. Thank you, Clara said, for protecting Emma, for handling Michael's lawyers, for all of it. It's in the contract. Stop hiding behind the contract. Just say you're welcome. Leonid's lips twitched. You're welcome. It felt like progress. The next 2 weeks were a waiting game. Michael's lawyers did back off, just like Leonid predicted. The custody threat evaporated. The accusations of complicity died without evidence. But Michael himself stayed quiet. Too quiet. He's planning something, Leonid said one night over dinner. They'd started eating together, first out of convenience, then out of habit. Emma liked it, said it felt like a family. Clara tried not to think about how much she liked it too. How do you know? She asked, passing Emma the vegetables. Because quiet means he's waiting for the right moment. He's been backed into a corner, but he hasn't conceded. That makes him dangerous. More dangerous than threatening a 5-year-old? Different dangerous. Leonid cut his steak with precise movements. He knows he can't win through legal channels, so he'll try something else. Like what? I don't know yet, but I'll know when it happens. It happened 3 days later. Claire was at work when her phone rang. Unknown number. She almost didn't answer, but something made her pick up. Clara? Michael's voice smooth and familiar and making her skin crawl. We need to talk. She nearly hung up. But then she thought about Leonid saying Michael would make another move, thought about having information he could use. I have nothing to say to you, she said. Then just listen. I know about your arrangement with Orlov. I know it's not a real marriage, and I'm willing to keep that quiet in exchange for something very simple. What? Leave him. Take Emma, walk away, and I'll make sure his business partners never find out the truth about your marriage. Stay and I'll destroy both of you. Claire's hand tightened on the phone. You can't prove anything. I don't need to prove it. I just need to make people doubt. Doubt is enough in his world. Michael's voice was almost pleasant. Think about it, Clara. Is Leonid Orlov really worth losing everything for? He hung up before she could respond. Clara sat there, phone still pressed to her ear, mind racing. Michael was right about one thing. If Leonid's associates found out their marriage was a contract, it would undermine everything. The stability, the appearances, the carefully constructed fiction they'd built. But leaving meant going back to nothing. It meant Emma losing the security she'd found. It meant giving Michael exactly what he wanted. Clara called Leonid. Michael contacted me, she said when he answered. He knows about the contract. He's threatening to expose us if I don't leave. Silence. Then, where are you? At work. Stay there. I'm sending security. Don't leave the building without them. Leonid, I'll handle it, Clara. Just stay put. He hung up. 20 minutes later, 2 of Leonid's men arrived. They escorted Clara to the parking garage, into a car with tinted windows. She felt ridiculous, like she was in a spy movie. But when they pulled up to the penthouse and Leonid met her at the elevator, his expression was serious enough to kill any urge to laugh. "We need to talk," he said. In his office, he pulled up surveillance footage on his computer. Michael isn't in the Caymans anymore. He's here, in the city. We spotted him 3 hours ago. Claire's blood ran cold. How did he get back? Fake passport, probably. We're tracking him now, but he's good at staying off-grid. Leonid turned the monitor to face her. He's staying at a hotel downtown. Mid-range, nothing fancy. He's running out of money. So he's desperate. Extremely, which makes him unpredictable. Leonid leaned back in his chair. I can end this tonight. One call, and Michael disappears. Not permanently, he added, seeing Clara's expression. Just long enough to recover the assets and ensure he can't threaten you again. That's kidnapping. That's problem-solving. Clara paced the office, trying to think. There has to be another way. There is. You meet with him. You wear a wire. He makes threats on tape. We give it to the police. He gets arrested. Leonid's tone was careful. But that puts you at risk. I don't like it. I don't like any of this. But if we can end it legally, that's better than whatever you're planning. Clara, I'll do it. Set up the meeting. Leonid looked like he wanted to argue, but finally he nodded. Tomorrow. Public place, my people everywhere. The second it goes wrong, we pull you out. It won't go wrong. It might. That's why I'm taking precautions. The next day, Clara sat in a coffee shop across from the hotel where Michael was staying. She wore a wire taped to her ribs, uncomfortable and obvious despite Leonid's assurances that Michael wouldn't notice. He walked in at exactly 3 o'clock, looking tired and rumpled and nothing like the man she'd almost married. He'd lost weight. There were circles under his eyes. Clara. He sat down across from her. Thank you for meeting me. I'm not here to negotiate, she said. I'm here to tell you to leave us alone. I can't do that. Not until Leonid returns what's mine. You stole from him. He doesn't owe you anything. I took what I was entitled to. I worked for him, managed his accounts, made him money. I deserved more than he was paying. Michael leaned forward. This whole situation could have been avoided if he'd just been reasonable. Clara couldn't believe what she was hearing. You stole millions of dollars and fled the country. You threatened our daughter, and you think Leonid is the unreasonable one? Our daughter deserves better than being raised by a criminal. You're the criminal, Michael. Orlov is worse. Do you even know what he does? The people he works with? Michael's voice dropped. He's dangerous, Clara. To you, to Emma. Leave him before it's too late. I'm safer with him than I ever was with you. Michael's expression hardened. Then you're a fool. And when this blows up in your face, don't say I didn't warn you. He stood to leave. Clara felt panic rise, that they didn't have enough. The threats weren't clear enough. The wire hadn't captured anything useful. You threatened Emma, she said loudly. You said you'd hurt her if I didn't do what you wanted. Michael turned back, eyes narrowed. I never said that. You implied it. The message to Leonid was about business, not about some kid I barely know. He studied her face, and Clara saw the moment he realized something was wrong. His eyes dropped to her torso, to where the wire was hidden. You're recording this, he said flatly. Didn't answer. Michael laughed, bitter and harsh. Of course you are. You really think I'm stupid enough to confess on tape? He leaned down, speaking directly to her chest. Tell Orlov if he wants his money back, he knows where to find me. But he touches me and everything I know about his operations goes public. Every name, every account, every dirty deal. Mutually assured destruction. He walked out. Clara sat frozen, knowing they'd failed. Leonid appeared beside her seconds later, sliding into Michael's empty seat. You okay? He knows, he figured it out. I heard. Leonid's jaw was tight. Come on, we're leaving. Back at the penthouse, Clara stripped off the wire with shaking hands. I'm sorry, I ruined it. You didn't ruin anything. He was never going to confess on tape. I knew that. Leonid poured them both whiskey. But now I know his play. Mutually assured destruction. He thinks he can hold my business hostage. Can he? No, because he doesn't actually have anything. If he did, he would have used it already. Leonid handed Clara her glass. He's bluffing. How do you know? Because I've been doing this long enough to recognize a desperate man's last stand. He sat beside her on the couch. It's over, Clara. Michael loses. It's just a matter of how loudly. 2 days later, the police arrested Michael Chen at his hotel. The charges were extensive: fraud, embezzlement, identity theft, wire fraud. The evidence was overwhelming. Leonid's lawyers had built an airtight case. Clara watched the news coverage with a mix of relief and something that felt uncomfortably like grief. Emma's father was going to prison. Someday Clara would have to explain that to her daughter, but not today. He'll serve at least 5 years, Leonid said, joining her on the couch. Probably more with the multiple charges. Your college fund has been restored. The joint account too. Everything he took, you're getting back. What about your $4 million? Most of it's been recovered. The rest, he shrugged. The cost of doing business. Clara turned to face him. Why did you really do all this? And don't say it was about the contract or your sister or business arrangements. The truth. Leonid was quiet for a long time. Because you deserved better than being someone's casualty. And because, he stopped, started again. Because somewhere between the chapel and now, you stopped being a contract and started being someone I actually care about. You and Emma both. That's the most human thing you've ever said to me. Don't get used to it. But Clara smiled because she was starting to think maybe she could. The weeks that followed felt different, lighter, somehow. Michael was in jail, the debt was resolved, and Clara could finally breathe. She and Leonid settled into something that looked almost like a real marriage. They had dinner together every night. They talked about their days. Emma adored him, called him Leo because Leonid was too hard to say. And slowly, carefully, Clara realized she didn't want this to end. The 2-year mark was approaching faster than she'd expected. Catherine had started drafting the dissolution paperwork, preparing for the end of their arrangement. Clara couldn't bring herself to sign. We need to talk, she told Leonid one night after Emma was asleep. He looked up from his laptop. That sounds ominous. The contract is almost up. Catherine says we should start planning the transition. All right. I don't want to. The words came out in a rush. I know that's not what we agreed. I know this was supposed to be temporary, but I don't want to leave. Leonid set down his laptop carefully. Why not? Because this works. We work. Emma's happy, I'm happy, and I hope, you're happy too. Clara took a breath. I'm not asking for love. I know that's not something you do. But partnership, friendship, this life we've built, can we just keep it? Clara, I know you don't do emotions. I know you're broken or protected or whatever you want to call it. But I also know you care about us. I've seen it. So maybe we don't need grand declarations or romance. Maybe what we have is enough. Leonid stood, crossed to where she sat. You're wrong. Clara's heart sank. About what? About me not doing emotions? About being broken? He crouched down to her level, taking her hands. I told myself for years that I was better off alone. Safer, more efficient, less complicated. And then you walked into my life in a wedding dress, terrified and brave and absolutely determined to protect your daughter, and you wrecked everything. I wrecked in the best way. His grip tightened on her hands. I care about you, Clara. More than I meant to. More than I wanted to. Somewhere between the contract and the dinners and the late-night conversations, you became someone I can't imagine living without. You and Emma both. Clara's eyes stung. That sounds suspiciously like love. I think it might be. I'm not sure. I've never felt it before. He smiled, tentative and uncertain and utterly real. But if this is what it feels like, I don't want it to end. So we stay married? If you'll have me. Not as a contract, as a choice. Clara pulled him up, kissed him before she could overthink it. It was different from the kiss at the chapel. Tentative, where that one had been possessive. Gentle, where that one had been efficient. It felt like a beginning. When they pulled apart, Leonid was smiling. Actually smiling, not the controlled version he showed the world. I should tell you something, he said. The contract had an out clause. I know. I could leave any time if I felt unsafe. Not that one. A different clause. Page 47, section 12. If either party developed genuine feelings, the contract became void and the marriage became real. Clara stared at him. When did you add that? Catherine put it in the original draft. I told her it was unnecessary. She said I was an idiot and left it in anyway. Smart woman. The smartest. Leonid pulled Clara closer. So what do you say? Want to be married for real this time? Yes, though we're doing this backward, falling in love after the wedding. We've done everything backward. Why stop now? They told Emma the next morning over breakfast. She took it better than expected, mostly because she'd never understood why they kept saying the marriage was temporary in the first place. So Leo gets to stay forever? She asked through a mouthful of pancake. If that's okay with you, Clara said. Emma considered this seriously. Can we get a dog? Leonid looked at Clara, who shrugged. Can we get a dog? He asked. Only if you're staying forever, not just 2 years. Forever, Leonid promised. Okay, then yes, you can stay. Emma went back to her pancakes, crisis averted. Clara caught Leonid's eye across the table. He was smiling again, that real smile that made him look younger and less dangerous and completely hers. They got the dog the following week, a golden retriever puppy that Emma named Snowball despite it being completely the wrong color. It chewed Leonid's shoes and knocked over Emma's toys and somehow made the penthouse feel like an actual home. Clara went back to work, but she didn't need the job anymore. She kept it because she wanted it, because she liked having her own purpose beyond being Leonid's wife. They renegotiated their living situation, combined bedrooms, shared space, built something together instead of existing in parallel. It wasn't perfect. Leonid still worked too much, still got cold and distant when business went wrong. Claire still panicked when Emma was 5 minutes late from school, still woke up sometimes convinced this was all going to fall apart. But they worked through it, together. 6 months after Michael's arrest, Clara got a letter. He was writing from prison, asking to see Emma, claiming he'd changed. She threw it away without reading past the first paragraph. Leonid found her in the kitchen that evening, staring at the trash can. Second thoughts? He asked. About what? Denying him access to Emma. No. He doesn't get to traumatize my daughter and then ask for forgiveness. He made his choices. Clara turned to face Leonid. We all did. Are you happy with yours? Clara thought about the wedding that fell apart, about climbing into a car with a stranger, about signing a contract that became something real. Yes, she said, I really am. Leonid kissed her forehead. Good, because I'm not letting you go. Promises, promises. I keep my promises. He did. Through Emma's elementary school years, through Clara's decision to go back to school for her master's degree, through Leonid gradually stepping back from the riskier parts of his business, through the adoption papers he filed to become Emma's legal father, which made her cry and him pretend his eyes were just watering from allergies, through the conversation with Emma when she was 12 and asked about Michael, Clara told her the truth, simplified, age-appropriate, but honest, that Michael had made bad choices, hurt people, and was paying the consequences. Emma had nodded, asked a few questions, then shrugged and gone back to her homework. She had a father. She didn't need the biological one. Through the night, Clara woke up panicking, convinced she'd made a mistake, that she'd trapped herself in a life she'd never wanted. Leonid had held her while she cried, hadn't tried to fix it, just listened. By morning, the panic had passed. It always did. Through the quiet moments, mornings with coffee, evenings with Emma's increasingly complicated homework, nights when they'd sit together in comfortable silence, through the realization that love wasn't what Clara had thought it was. It wasn't grand gestures or passionate declarations. It was choosing someone over and over, even when it was hard, especially when it was hard. Years later, when Emma graduated high school with a full scholarship to her dream college, Clara stood with Leonid watching their daughter accept her diploma. The college fund that Michael had stolen and Leonid had restored was untouched. They hadn't needed it. Leonid had paid for everything, insisted on it, said that was what fathers did. We did good, Clara said quietly. You did good. I just provided resources. You provided everything. Clara leaned into him. And you know it. Emma bounded over after the ceremony, diploma in hand, grinning. Can we go celebrate? I'm starving. Wherever you want, Leonid said. The diner by our old apartment, the one with the good fries. Clara's throat tightened. That diner was where she'd taken Emma after bad days, when money was tight and they'd split a plate of fries and pretended it was a feast. "You sure?" she asked. "We could go somewhere fancier." "I like the diner. It reminds me of when we were just us, before everything got complicated." Emma looked between them. "Not that complicated is bad, just different." They went to the diner, sat in a cracked vinyl booth and ordered too much food and laughed until Clara's cheeks hurt. And Clara thought about the woman she'd been, standing at an altar in a borrowed dress, watching her world collapse. She thought about the choice she'd made in desperation, the contract that had become a marriage, the stranger who'd become her family. She thought about how nothing had gone according to plan, and how that had somehow turned out to be the best thing that could have happened. When they got home that night, Emma disappeared to her room to video call friends. Clara and Leonid stood in the living room, the same one where Emma had unpacked her coloring books what felt like a lifetime ago. "Do you ever regret it?" Leonid asked. "The way we started?" Clara thought about it, really thought about it. "No," she said finally. "Because if it had started any other way, it wouldn't be us. And I like us. Even though I coerced you? Even though let's be clear, if you ever pull something like that again, I'm leaving and taking the dog." Leonid laughed, pulling her close. "Deal." They stood there, holding each other, while Snowball snored on the couch, and Emma's laughter echoed from her room. It wasn't the life Clara had imagined. It was better. Because it was real. Because it was chosen. Because love, it turned out, was less about the beginning and more about everything that came after. And thereafter was pretty damn good.